Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tip. In today's episode, we're talking about the Florida Panthers and their fantasy overview for the 2021 season. Now, Florida is almost a completely new team this year. They signed so many new guys and they let go of a couple of really big pieces. So, with that being said, let's jump right into their projected lines. Their top line is Huberdeau, Barkov, and either Owen Tippett or Vetrano, depending if Owen Tippett makes the team or not. Their second line should be Denisenko if he makes the team, Achari, and Hornquist. Their third line should be Connolly, Wenberg, and either Vetrano or Duclair, and that fourth line will be Sarella, Verhaeghe, and Hinostroza. On that number one power play, it'll be Hornquist, Barkov, Keith Yandle, Huberdeau, and then either Denisenko if he makes the team, or Duclair. On that second power play, it'll be Connolly, Wenberg, Owen Tippett or Duclair, Vetrano, and Aaron Ekblad. So now let's jump right into our do not draft list, and these are players that I think you should be avoiding in your fantasy draft. So first on the list, guys, is Aaron Ekblad. And the reason for this is last year he had a career year, scoring 41 points in only 67 games, which seems pretty good. Like, you might want to draft a guy like that, right? I don't think so. Ekblad doesn't play on that top power play ever. They always give that spot to Keith Yandle. Even last year when Keith Yandle was really struggling, it still was Yandle on that top power play. And on top of that, Florida isn't as good this year. Their offense is not going to be as good. They've lost Hoffman, they've lost Dadonov. Yeah, obviously they still have Huberdeau and Barkov, their two best players, but their offense is not nearly as good as it was, so I don't expect Ekblad's numbers to be as high this year. And that's why at 165, I'd like to stay away from him. I'd much prefer to take a defenseman with more guaranteed points, a guy getting a lot of top power play minutes. So next on this list, guys, is someone Florida signed in the offseason, and that is Alex Wenberg. And he had 22 points last year in 57 games, which is okay, but honestly, I don't expect his numbers to go up that much because I don't expect him to really play on that great of a line in Florida. I don't really expect him to get a lot of top power play time, if any power play time at all, honestly. And I just don't see how Wenberg's numbers can really improve that much, and that's why I'm going to stay away from him. Alright guys, so let's jump right into our draft list, and first and second on the list are Huberdeau and Barkov. They're kind of a dynamic duo in Florida, and they are both fantastic players. Huberdeau's shooting percentage last year was a little bit inflated, so his 78 points that he got last year should go down a little bit, whereas I expect Barkov's point total to go up a little bit because he had a little bit of a down season. All in all, their point totals should be about the same as each other, and they are both really good options where they are currently ranked. Alright, so next on this list, guys, is Sergei Bobrovsky, and last year he kind of sucked. His save percentage was only 900 exactly, which is kind of the bare minimum you want from a goaltender, and with a gigantic contract like he has with Florida, they definitely expected more from him, and I think that he's ready to bounce back this season and get back into that form that he was in Columbus. Now Florida, their team hasn't really improved this year, especially not their offense. I think they added a whole bunch of guys, but they also lost some important pieces on the offense too. So their offense could potentially be a little bit improved if Denisenko and Tippett and a couple of the other guys that they signed turn out to be really good signings. But for the most part, I don't think their offense is better. Their defense, though, is a little bit better. They lost Matheson, but they got Nudivara, and they also got Radko Gudas. So those guys should help bolster their defense and help the team be a little bit better defensively. If that is the case, then Bobrovsky should do a little bit better this year, and I expect him to bounce back. At a range of 168, it's pretty good for Bobrovsky because he's the obvious number one starting goalie in Florida, and not a lot of teams have an obvious number one anymore. So yeah, I'd recommend drafting Bobrovsky at this range. So next on the list, guys, at 175 is Keith Yandle. And Keith Yandle had a very up and down season last year. He recorded 45 points in 69 games, which seems pretty good, right? Well, he had some really hot and cold streaks. Like, there were streaks that he was scoring points left and right, and he was getting multiple points per game. And then there are also periods where he was not doing anything for a long time. I had him in my fantasy team, and I considered dropping him multiple times just because he was just doing nothing for such long periods of time. But it's Keith Yandle. Yeah, he's getting a little bit older, but he should still be getting that top power play time. And like I always say, any defenseman getting top power play minutes is worth an ad. And where he's currently ranked at 175, that's a really good spot to grab Keith Yandle on a deadly power play like Florida's. Now next on the list is Patrick Hornqvist. And I'm not super high on him, but I think he can bring you some decent fantasy value. This is especially true in bangers leagues, where hits count for a lot of points, because Patrick Hornqvist likes to hit a decent amount. He's also a really good net front presence on the power play. He was used that way in Pittsburgh, and I absolutely expect him to be used the same way in Florida. So obviously he's going to be getting that top power play time, which makes him a pretty decent pick, especially playing on a unit with Barkov and Huberdeau. I don't really expect his total numbers to go up, but at 180, he's a pretty safe fantasy pick. Now at the end of my videos, I usually have a keep an eye out for list. Now these are guys that either you have to keep an eye out to see if they make the team and or if they play on a top line. In the case of Florida, they have a whole lot of new guys that are going to be starting this year, so we really don't know where anyone's going to play in the lineup. I made a projected lineup, but the actual lineup could look nothing like that. So I'm going to list these guys for you, and any one of these guys could potentially have fantasy value, depending on where they play in the lineup or if they crack the lineup at all. The guys listed in red have a better chance, in my opinion, to do some real fantasy damage. So these players are Owen Tippett, Frank Petrano, Anthony Duclair, Carter Verhaeghe, Brett Connolly, Noel Achari, and Grigory Denisenko. Now the guys that I think have the best chance of having some fantasy value are Tippett, are Duclair, and are Denisenko. If I had to pick a fourth one, it would be Vetrano. But they all really depend on where they play in that lineup. So let's keep an eye on training camps, and let's look at the first couple of Florida games. If Tippett ends up playing on that top line with Huberdeau and Barkov, then suddenly he has a ridiculous amount of fantasy value. Same thing goes with Denisenko, same thing goes with Duclair, same thing goes with Vetrano, or really any of these guys if they play on that top line. The same thing goes for any of these guys if they play on that top power play as well. So let's just keep an eye on it. And I'll send out a tweet once we know more about the Florida Panthers lines. Alright guys, so you've reached the end of the YouTube video. I really appreciate you guys watching all the way through. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment down below. Let me know how I can improve these videos. Until next time guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.